Hey everyone, my name is Scott Dugan, and I'm an Ableton certified trainer in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, let's talk about recording with Ableton Live. So I've got a couple of things lined up for you. Let me tell you guys what I've got going on for the next hour or so, maybe 45 minutes. Talk about recording in arrangement view, which is this view here. And we'll talk about recording in session view. That's this view here. We'll go over recording MIDI, and we'll go over recording audio. And then talk about, the nitty-gritty, how to do that, and all the different things that requires as far as punching in, arming, editing, all that fun stuff. All right, and make sure if you have any questions, please stick it in the comments, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to assume that you know a little bit about Ableton Live as far as terminology, so I'll jump over into arrangement view, and I'm just going to shrink all these up. That way we can kind of start over again, and we'll get to these stems in a second here. So, arrangement view. Ableton Live, it's most known for its looping capabilities, its live capabilities, and it's actually a fully functional DAW as well. We can record ourselves, singing, playing a guitar. We can record a full band. We can record drums. Anything that all the other DAWs can do, Ableton Live can do. So to do that, let's pretend like we're going to record maybe a three-piece. So maybe vocals, guitar, bass, and drum, something like that. So we'll create 3 tracks. Okay. Oh, let's go back a second. 3 tracks. Shortcut on a Mac is Apple T. Long way is from Create menu at the top, insert audio track. And that's how we would create our 3 audio tracks to record those 3 real instruments. Before we get to selecting our inputs, we would go into Preferences, make sure our sound card is selected. So I have a Mode 2 828, have that selected, turn on our outputs, turn on our inputs. All right. Make sure our latency is set at an appropriate level for monitoring. Drop this down probably as low as possible. That's a whole nother video. But that's where we'd set our latency and stuff like that. All right, so here we have 3 audio tracks, and we can select an input from our sound card. So here we have my microphone is set to input number 1. We can see that giving us a monitoring signal here. Let me just pick whatever input we have our XLR 1/4 inch plugged into. So 1 through, in this case, 12 I've available to me. Or I can pick a stereo source. So, that's how it goes. So there's our audio tracks. Let's talk about MIDI real fast as well. To do that, to Apple Shift T, 1, 2, 3. The long way is from the Create menu, insert MIDI track. Okay? So MIDI basically records, hopefully you guys are familiar with MIDI, but in real short, MIDI is a digital language, an old digital language from the 80s. Basically, if I play a MIDI controller, the MIDI controller tells live what I'm playing, so as far as a C, E, G, whatever, and a velocity, how long I hold it, stuff like that. So I can play a virtual instrument. And if you have, like say Suite, you have a bunch of virtual instruments. Under Instruments, we have all of these here. You can also, of course, download or purchase and install third-party virtual instruments. They're also called soft synths. So those are located here. So if I were to drop in, let's do like a kind of just a standard piano type sound. You could do, say, grand piano. Okay, here's the instrument down at the bottom. That's, again, a whole nother video. I'm just going to fold this up. And now I can basically play a MIDI controller and tell Ableton what notes I'm playing through that MIDI language and record those MIDI notes and then go back in and edit it later. So you have 2 different options. We can record audio and we can record MIDI. All right, so how do we record our first passage? Okay, I'm going to solo this grand piano track. Okay, I'm going to drop it down to the very bottom so we can see it and fold everything up. Hit solo it, and now we have to tell Live what tracks we want to record on. I want to record this MIDI track, this grand piano MIDI track, so I'm going to record enable it. I'm going to arm it. That's this red button on the very right. If I wanted to record that drum and bass and the vocal or guitar or whatever along with it, I can hold Apple or Command on the Mac and record enable those tracks as well. So I can record multiple tracks. I can record on multiple tracks at the same time. That's how I do that. So once I have my tracks record enabled, all I have to do now is hit the arrangement view record button here, and we're off to the races. Before we do that, let's set up our metronome. We want to play along with a click. So we have the metronome set to 85 BPM, and I want to turn on the metronome, which is located here, and then I can give it myself a pre-count, basically a full bar or 2 bars or 4 bars to get ready. So if I set it to 1 bar, and I hit, let's take a listen. There's my piano. Okay. There's my piano sound. The record button at the top, I have 1 bar. Okay, so I played my performance. I can zoom in, and those are the actual notes I played. Double click, and now I have my MIDI editor. I can go in, I can quantize it, I can move things around. So for example, I can select all those notes, and I can use my number, my arrow keys. I can transpose this from from C to D, up 2 more, we're in the key of E. So MIDI gives us a lot of flexibility when it comes to fixing or changing stuff later down the road. I can also quantize this. The shortcut is Apple Shift U. And now I can quantize it. I can select what slice to quantize it to, so the smallest increment, quantize it to the nearest quarter note, to the nearest eighth note, etc. So let's make an eighth note. I can adjust the beginning of the note, the end of the note, or any combination thereafter. And I can specify the amount. So if I made it 100%, everything's going to snap to the nearest eighth note. Apple Z, because I didn't want that. Command Shift U. I only want it to be a 60% strength. So it will be 60% closer to perfect, or that eighth note. So that gives us some human feel, but it still makes it a little more close to perfect. All right, so that's MIDI. So next, let's look at audio. Let's record a quick passage here. I'm going to solo my first audio track. Fold this away for later. Again, I have a synth over here, and it's coming in. Let's take a look. So it's coming in on 3 and 4. We saw that little green monitor show up here. Select that. And let's talk about the monitoring section really quick. If we record enable it, we'll be able to hear it. Or I will be, at least. Hopefully you can hear it through the mic a little bit. We have 3 different options after we select where we want that audio source to come in from. We have in, auto, and off. Auto is probably what you're going to select, I would say, 75–80% of the time. With auto selected and the track armed, we're going to monitor what's coming in. If I record something, all right, so there's my audio recording. And if I have this set to auto, and again, the track armed, this allows me to record. If I unarm the track, this allows me to hit play and listen back. So this is I would say the standard way of using uh, Ableton as a DAW. We're going to use auto a lot. Turning it to off basically kills both functions. We can't listen back, we can't record. With it set to in, we can only monitor what's coming in to that track. This would be good, again, for monitoring if we're going to process things live. So you could process, say, your vocals live through Ableton Live. You could process a guitar live through Ableton Live. You could use Live as a host for your soft synths. And you don't want to record, and you don't want to listen back to what's been played. You just want to use it as like a pass-through almost. And that's what in would be used for. But we're not going to do that today. Let's go back to auto. All right. So now, once we have our audio recorded, just like we did with MIDI, we can double-click, and here we have another editor. It's our audio editor. And we can actually quantize this as well through warping. So if we want to, we can warp this in real time and do any kind of quantizing or anything like that we want to do. And again, that's a whole nother video about warping and quantizing. And maybe we'll do that soon. I think there's already been some videos up about warping and stuff like that. So make sure you check those out. All right, so we have our two performances. Let's get rid of these two for a second. All right, there we go. So now we can start manipulating our MIDI and our audio. And let's take a look at what I have written down here. Okay. All right, let's talk about what we have an idea down, both in MIDI form and in audio form. And now let's say we went to overdub. We made a mistake. Let's say we want to punch in, or let's say we want to add information to this MIDI track or this MIDI take. I'll start with the MIDI first. We have the option to add information or to merge MIDI, and that button is located here at the top. It's this big old plus sign. And if I turn that on and hit record, enable this track, and hit record, MIDI will be added to this track. So watch what happens. Okay, so I added MIDI to that track. If I hit undo and turned off overdub, watch what happens. Okay, it's going to replace the MIDI that's there. All right? Now this only works with MIDI. We can't add information to an audio track. If we wanted to do something in addition to what we did there, we just create a new track and have a second take that we would, mix together with the first one. So that overdub, that merge, MIDI merge, is only available with an audio track. Okay, so what's next? Let's talk about punching in and punching out. And that comes to both MIDI and to audio. So a really nice workflow, a quick workflow. Let's say we like everything in here, but we really hate everything that comes after it. We hate this stuff. Okay? Fast workflow, Command L sets the loop bracket around that time. And notice it turned on looping up here on the top. And it's moved that loop bracket exactly where we had it highlighted, where that time was highlighted. So now all we have to do is turn on our punch in and punch out, and then turn off looping. We don't want to loop. So now if we record and enable this track and hit record at the top, only this section within that bracket will be recorded. For example, watch. Oh, I've got to set my playhead to the very beginning. There we go. Let's turn off that pre-roll. There we go. So there it is. Pretty stupid part, but you got it. We can just replace the area selected with that loop bracket. Same thing with audio too. We can have our punch in and punch out locator here. If we record and enable that, we can do the same thing. So we just replaced that area that time or area that was selected. And we can go in, select fades. We can crossfade between the two, something like that. And now we have our punch in nicely crossfaded. Yep, bad playing, but you get the point. All right, let's see what's next. Oh, editing, of course. So once we have parts selected, we can come in here and actually, like I showed you before, we can edit the individual MIDI notes. We can, say I played the wrong note. We can move this up, move it back down. We can duplicate it. We can copy, paste it, copy, paste. We can shorten these MIDI notes. We can select more than one, shorten, make them longer, and, anything you want. Imagine it's a Word document. You can do anything: copy, paste, duplicate, delete, all that fun stuff. All right, let's go back to arrangement view here. Now we can do the same thing with our clips. So if we want to, we can cut, we can blade or splice this apart, something like that. We can select an area and duplicate it. This goes with audio as well. So we can cut this up, select a part, duplicate it, anything you want. All right, so let's see what's next here. Okay, freeze and flatten. All right, let's say we are chugging along, and say you're composing something, and for example, I sometimes compose to video or something like that. I'm using these big string libraries. Like a violin takes 2 or 3 gigs of RAM, right? So it's this huge sample library. I start stacking these up. I have say 10 or 12 different layers of strings. Well, my hard drive and my CPU, quite frankly, can't keep up with that when my latency or my buffer size is set low enough to where I can play along with my session, with my set. So I need to bounce this down to audio really quickly so my CPU isn't trying to look at these MIDI notes and play those samples in real time. And there's a really cool workflow called freeze. If I right-click on my track title here, I can select freeze track. Now what Ableton Live just did was take this and bounce it down, so bounce in place. And now Live is not looking at these MIDI notes and trying to play a sample with those MIDI notes off my hard drive. It's now just playing an audio file that's been rendered to my hard drive. So I can offload a lot of stuff from my CPU by freezing. Now the really cool thing is from this, I have 2 different options. I can unfreeze, make some edits. Maybe I don't like this note here. I can remove it. All right. Now I can refreeze it. Okay. And now I have a new audio file that Live will reference. So from here, I could just leave it like this if I wanted to, no problem. Or I can flatten it. And what that did is gives me my waveform. It removed the MIDI information and gave me my my audio file that I can actually see now. So this is really handy when, say, I'm working on a project with someone and I have a plugin. Maybe I have Ivory, this big piano sample library. And my friend doesn't have it, but I want to give him this set. And I want to go back and forth maybe a little bit. He'll add his guitar, he'll add a bass, send it back to me, and I'll finish the key parts. Okay? So I can freeze track by track and send it to him. And even if he doesn't have Ivory, he can hear what I played. And this goes with soft synths, and this goes with effects. So if I have a third-party effect, let's say go into plugins, and I have a Fab Filter, FF1, Fab Filter 1, and I put this on this track. And he doesn't have that. If I freeze that track, he can hear everything that I've done, record his guitar part, send it back to me. I can unfreeze this track and begin editing my parts again. It's a really cool workflow. It's one of my favorite workflows, to be honest. So that's freeze and flatten. Another nice thing is that we can, of course, use external instruments as well. So I have, for example, the sound, this audio track here is a Juno 60, and sitting here right here next to me. And let's pretend I'm not a good keyboard player, right? And I actually want to record MIDI information, get that MIDI information perfect, quantized down to the 8th note. I want to send it to that Juno and have it come back in to Ableton Live. Now I can do that the long way through the routing information here. I could, have all ins come in through my MIDI keyboard, so MIDI information is coming from every source. I could send it to, somewhere outside. So I could, if I delete this, I could send that MIDI information out of a port on my MIDI Express. So bear with me. MIDI's coming in from a MIDI controller, is going out of another MIDI interface, going into the Jupiter, and then coming into my sound card. So that's the long, dirty way. There's actually a really cool workflow that we can use with an instrument, with an external instrument device. So I go to Instruments, External Instrument, okay? Drop that onto the MIDI track. There we go. And now I can route everything here. So let's see, I've got my Juno plugged into output number 2. There we go. And it's coming in from, let's look, 3 and 4, right? Yes. Okay, 3 and 4. And now everything's self-contained in this one MIDI track. And now I'm going to play a MIDI controller. And that MIDI controller, it's an Axiom 25, is sending that MIDI to my modded Juno 60. That audio is coming back into that track all through this external instrument. Now I can record something. Okay, so I can now go in and perfect my performance via MIDI and use that external hardware. This also works with external effects. So if you have that outboard gear that you love to use, we can use that with an external audio effect. We can drop that on here as well. And same thing, we have basically an insert. We want audio to go to, let's see here, this is a Strymon Blue Sky. We want it to go to 5 and 6 here. Audio coming back in through 5 and 6. Okay, so this is a reverb. Let's hear what it sounds like. Select that, loop it. I'll turn this up. So there's using external effects and external instruments with live as well. And that was super fast. That routing's all within that one track. We don't have to have multiple tracks and multiple aux inputs like some other DAWs have to do. So that's a really cool workflow. And the nice thing is, if I have everything patched, I could go in here and hit save, and this would be my Juno. So whenever I want to use my Juno, I just pull in this preset. Whenever I want to use my Blue Sky, I just pull in that preset, and within 10 seconds I'm using outboard hardware. It's really fun. All right, so let's see what we have next. We can do automation, yeah, and we can do, let's do monitor mixes. Okay, automation. Automation is huge when we're using live as a DAW to mix. Mix down, whatever stems, whatever. All right, so automation is super simple. All you have to do is click on the parameter that you want to automate, and a new automation lane will pop up for you. So let's say I want to automate panning. Panning is on the very right here. Click on it. Here's my automation lane. Pan it right, pan it left, back to center. That's it. Okay, I can drop that down into a new lane, and now I want to automate volume. I can do that. Insert a breakpoint, have it fade in, And now see how when I hover close to a line there, it turns blue? That allows me to move that line. Otherwise, I hover over a node here and I can move that node. If I hover close to a line like this and hold, let's see, it's Option, I can now insert a nice fade here, parabolic curve. Cool, huh? I can also go up to my pencil tool, and now I can start drawing an automation within the grid. Cool. So that's automation. And of course, I can freeze this track, and all that automation will be rendered down except for volume changes. And it might be panning too. Let's check. Let's do freeze. Oh, it's going to be external. Let's do cancel. So what just happened? This is awesome workflow too. If I hit freeze track, remember this is being sent out to an external piece of hardware, two external pieces of hardware. So it is actually going to render, bounce in place, that external hardware for me. Okay. Now let's hit cancel. Oh, crap. I didn't want to hit cancel. Let's try again. Skip. I just wanted to finish. Okay, skip. There we go. Okay, so now I have a waveform, wave file on my hard drive that is actually those two instruments, those two hardware effects. So the Juno and the Blue Sky have been rendered in real time, and it looks like panning and volume both change. Any other type of automation, whether that be a plugin, anything down here, would be kept as well. So if I automated the wet-dry mix, that's going to be bounced along with that audio. So I still have control over volume and panning after I freeze a track. So unfreeze, I can go back and edit some more. There we go. All right, so that's automation. And it's that simple to be, quite literally. If I added something else like an EQ, EQ8, and I want to automate the gain of band number 3, all I have to do is click on that gain. There's my new line for automation. I can change that band's gain. It's that simple. And that goes with third party as well. All right, let's see what's next. We did all this stuff. Monitor mixes. Okay, so before we go further, let's take a look at these stems I have up here. Okay, I'm going to just fold some of this away, and we can actually get rid of this. We don't need this right now. All right, so I have Close off of the Young and Free album, and these are just stems, and you can get these on the community's website. So here we have all the stems from the recording. I'm just going to disable our little stupid recording down at the bottom and hit play. So we have everything here. We have all the different stems, and we've also broken this down into the section of the song by adding locators. Right click, add locator, name it, chorus B, whatever. Delete, remove it as well. Okay. Let's pretend that we are recording the live band all in the live room all at once. We have the drums coming in, we've armed that, we have the bass players in there, the electric guitar players, the key players, the singers, everything's in there. We've got our routing set up perfectly to where everything's broken up. So maybe drums are coming in 3 and 4, bass is coming in on 5, synth bass is coming in on 6, etc., etc. We've armed all of these, and let's undo that. There we go. Okay, no feedback loop, please. And we just did our first take, and here it is. Okay, so now let's set up a monitor mix. Of course, we would do this first, but I just want you guys to see it. Monitor mixes are super easy with live. So all I'm going to do is create a return track for every person that wants a monitor mix. The shortcut here is Command Option T. There's monitor mix number 1. Let's do like 4. We can rename these. This is the drum guy. There's the bass guy, guitar, and the singer. Now, all I have to do is send, and I probably want to make these a pre-fader send. That way, if I adjust volume on any of these, it's not going to change their mixes at all. So the drummer is going to want drums, and here's send A from the drums. So drummer's going to want a lot of drums. Probably a lot of bass too, not so much guitar, and not so much singer. So here's where we customize our mix. So this is the drum send to all of our players. We're sending this to the drum mix, the bass's mix, the guitar's mix, and our singer's mix. Now if I tab over to session view here, we can see those sends a little more clearly. So here we have those sends as well. And that's how you create a monitor mix with Live. All we have to do next would be to change the routing of our monitor mixes. So this is just corresponding to the outputs of our audio card, our interface. So maybe the drummer has a pair of headphones plugged into output 3 and 4. Bass player has a pair of headphones plugged into 5 and 6, etc., etc. So that's monitor mixing in Ableton Live. As long as it has pre set on over here, we're not going to mess up their mixes by changing stuff on our end. There we go. And we could even add compression and all that fun stuff, and they will hear all that. They will hear all that as well. So that's monitor mixes. Pretty straightforward. I'm looking and I don't see any questions. Looks like we only have one person in here right now, but any questions, please shoot away. And even if you watch this video later and have questions, please jot them down and I'll come back or someone will come back and hopefully answer everything that comes our way. All right, so next, let's talk about recording in session view. This is really cool because session view is very, very different from our linear DAW that we're used to, that everyone has. So this is the linear DAW. Everything plays back, our arrangement plays back left to right in time, and we have everything plays back the way we see it. So it goes with time. In session view, it's kind of like an improv, which can be good if you embrace it. It can be very confusing if you don't. So here I'm going to try and enlighten you to recording in the session view. Think of this not so much as a tape machine like we do in arrangement view, where everything's time-based. Think of this more as like a painter's palette almost, where if we want some red, we can just grab some red. If we want some green, we can just grab some green. So if we want some bass, we can bring in the bass. If we want some drums, we can pick between 3 different takes that we can bring in. This is where it gets pretty cool. So we'll go back to our Juno here, and let's get rid of that automation and fun stuff over here. All right. So I just have to do the same thing, and they as far as monitoring. So these correspond. Everything in the monitoring section and the mixing section correspond in both views. So if I have all in set in session view, and we'll get rid of, let's clean this up a little bit. Here we go. We have all ins, external 1 and 2 in arrangement view as well. So this is going to be exactly the same in both views. And this, the volume, the pan, the mute, solo, arm is going to be the same as well. So going back and forth, they're exactly the same. I kind of like, I work with Pro Tools as well. Some of you maybe work with Logic. I go back and forth to mix. It's just me being weird, me being used to the Pro Tools 2-screen thing, but I'll look at the waveforms in arrangement view, and then I'll come over here and look at my mixing section in session view, and that's just how I do it. I don't know why, my brain likes it. I like maybe seeing everything vertically instead of horizontally. I don't know. But it works in both views. I digress. Anyway, so I can play my Juno here. Okay, I can turn down that send to reverb. It's just really it's too much. Let's drop that down to maybe 20%. I'm still playing my MIDI controller. Okay, I'm not playing the Juno at all. This MIDI is being sent to it via that external instrument send here. So what I can do now is I can start creating ideas. So this is where, again, where Ableton shines as far as capturing those ideas really, really quickly. Excuse me. So this all corresponds to our metronome, so our measures. With our global quantize set to 1 bar, recording starts on the downbeat and recording ends on the downbeat. Go ahead, Ed. Yeah, shoot away. I can hit play. Okay, turn on my metronome. And now I can hit the record button here, and it won't start recording until the downbeat. And it won't stop recording until the downbeat. Now see exactly, now watch what happens. See, it started looping that over and over again. That's idea number 1. Maybe I want to record idea number 2. We'll wait for the downbeat after I hit record. 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it. Okay. And now it's going to loop over and over again until I do something else. I can stop the clip. I could record another clip, or I could go back to idea number 1. And I can go down the list. I can just knock out 20 different ideas, 20 different takes, and just get all, like, just, you know, like when you're creative writing, you just kind of verbally vomit, or if you're writing a song, you just get everything out of your head. And this allows you to do that really fast in a very, very logical way. Everything's lined up to the downbeat. And this allows you to create all your ideas, and then come back and I can start improvising. So let's say I have a bunch of drum ideas, a bunch of bass ideas, a bunch of guitar ideas. I can just start firing these off and see what works, see if I like stuff. And that allows me to piece together parts. The cool thing is I can now also do automation in Session View as well. All I have to do is arm Session View automation, and now anything I do will be recorded into that clip. Can move the volume, move the pan, go in and move any type of device here as well. Even the enable disable was automated. Now I can double click on that clip, go to the envelope tab here, and I can see all of the automation I just recorded. So here's the device on off, which I should probably delete. I just want that on. Delete it all, make sure it's on. And now I have the frequency and the gain. Let's see what else I have. The mixer, so the volume and the pan. There's the volume, or there's the pan. Let's see the volume. And there's the automation. So I can start crafting these ideas further into, I can start, you know, crafting and developing these further to a finalized idea right in the session view. It's really powerful. I can then, of course, hit right click and freeze this as well. Freeze it in session view. All right, we have a question from Ed. It says, we have a question from Ed. What's stopping me from running Ableton? Let's see, running Ableton whenever I put together my set and save everything. I take it to church to fire up. Warp mode messes up all my stuff. I've turned off auto warp. What does one have to do to make it so I can just save and open my stuff? If warp mode is working fine, maybe are you? If you let's back up. If we're using the same computer, and it works fine at home, and you take it to the stage and everything's messed up, something's going wrong. For I've done that every Sunday for about 5 years, and I've never had something as far as warping mess up between my home computer and taking it to the stage or even transferring it to a computer. Um, so something is not happening correctly within. I don't know if you're transferring it to a new computer. I don't know if maybe the samples are being referenced to a different place. I don't know, but that's not normal. Um, I'd probably have to know a little bit more information and see it in action to give you an exact reason why, but that's not normal. So something's going on. Um, Now I know Loop Community does offer one-on-one training, and I would, if that's something you want to do, we will knock that out and make sure that's working for you. But I would just have to see exactly what's going on for that to work, to figure that out. Because once warp mode is off or once warp mode is on, it stays that way when you hit save and you open it up next time. At least that's the way it's supposed to happen, and that's the way it works for me. So I apologize it's not working for you. But yeah, so let's uh, just check out the one-on-one training, and that will that will really help, I think, in this case. So let's move on. Oh, same computer. Doesn't matter if I'm at home or not. Samples are long, and Ableton always wants to warp. So okay, so it sounds like you're dragging stuff in, and warp mode is turning on. If warp mode is turning on, it's probably just as a matter of turning it off and just hitting save. Because once it's turned off and you hit save, it should never come back on again. And you can select more than one clip at the same time. So, for example, if I drug all of these clips in, these audio files in, I just drug them in either from the browser or drug them in from a Finder window. I can actually select them all. I just held Shift, select the first one, held Shift, select the last one. Go down here to Detail View, and I can turn off warping for them all at the same time. So hopefully that will speed up the workflow for you as well. Right, so one more thing. This is a great workflow as well for me, and it's called resampling. This is really cool. So let's say, let's go back to our stems here. Just get rid of these. And I'm going to hit solo on all my BGVs. So I'm going to select all four, hit solo. If I hit play, I will hear all my BGVs. Okay, so I have all four BGVs, and I'm taking this to the stage. I don't want four BGVs, four BGV tracks or stems while I'm on stage. So I can kind of do a little mix at home. Let's say this one's too loud, this one's too soft. Let's pan this one to the left, pan this to the right. Take a listen. It's perfect. That's the way I want it. Now I want to bounce this down. I don't want to have to, bounce this out of live, re-import it, realign it, all that fun stuff. All I have to do is use a technique called resampling. I'm going to create a new audio track. Okay? And instead of my input being an external input from my audio interface, I'm going to select resampling. Now, anything that I can hear that's going out of the master is the source of recording. So if I hit record here, or if I hit on the track, with these four tracks soloed, that's the only thing that this track will record. If I unsoloed these and hit record, everything I hear going through that master track will be recorded into this this new track. So I'm going to rename this BGVs. I'm going to solo my BGVs again. And now I can just bounce down my BGVs. Let's start it in the middle just so you get the idea here. Okay, so there is a render, a recording of just those solo tracks. That's really cool. Again, if I had a MIDI track triggering that piano sound, let's drag that in again. We went to, let's just type piano, find a piano. Track, piano, yeah, okay. We can do this with MIDI tracks as well. So if I recorded a MIDI track, or if I record a MIDI clip here, and I want to bounce that down in real time, there's some instances where freeze won't work. For example, if you're using a sidechain, it won't let you freeze it, but you can resample it, which is really cool. It's kind of, if you think about the old school MPC where you're just, you record it in, overdub. It works kind of like that, where you're just building tracks by like internally recording. Really cool workflow. The last thing I want to go over, and Ed, I saw your reply, and I don't know why it's not working. Find a track. I have remove this to you. Yeah, I would just try what I do when I import tracks. I just grab them all from the Finder and dump them in all at one time. Where's my mouse here? Yeah, dump them all in, select them all, turn warp off, and then go in and make sure my start time is at 000 for them all. So everything's at 000 here. And then if I want to change the pitch, change the time signature, I'll select them all again and turn warp on. And now I've reset the warp markers so that they won't, they won't warp weird. They're actually going to stay exactly the same. See how the end has all evened out? Sometimes when you import them, the end, they get shortened, they get elongated. And that's actually how I do it every time, just to make sure. So import, unwarp everything, track by track, making sure it starts at 000, select them all again, warp them, and now I can change the keys. I can change the pitch, I can change the BPM. And I found that works every time and works exactly right every time. There's no surprises, and that's just what I do. That's what I do every time. And here we can see that some of them are warped, some of them aren't. 2 clicks makes them all unwarped. So hopefully that helps you. Again, for a specific instance, I hate that I can't answer right now, but that's, the one-on-one training will definitely take care of it. So that was resampling. The last thing I want to talk about before I get going is dumping these ideas back into arrangement view. So let's get rid of the stuff that we didn't like here. All right. So let's just grab. Let's say that we were the whole band was in the studio, and the whole band recorded just the intro idea. Okay, so here's the intro idea, and the whole band recorded just the chorus idea. Okay, and we really like the chorus, and we're playing around with those 2 different ideas. Okay, there's the intro. And let's say I came in and I recorded some, piano parts, a couple different options. We could start off with just the synth stuff, like maybe something like this. Okay, so we have all these ideas separated out, and we can now start triggering them sporadically, like improving. And that's really cool in session view. But let's say we want to solidify our arrangement. Now we want to have this loop come in first, we want the keys to come in second, and we want to capture that idea. Well, it's really easy. We can capture everything we do in session view in arrangement view. Now watch what happens. I'm going to hit the session record here. I'm going to launch the loop. Let's see if I have anything here. I don't. Let's launch this loop. I don't have anything there either. There we go. Okay, so let's start the song that way. We can add in the synth bass. Maybe add in the keys. Maybe do some automation, maybe fade that in. Pan it to the right. Okay, so everything I do over in session view is going to be captured in arrangement view for me. This is another way of building your arrangement besides the typical left to right linear tape machine way. So here's everything I did. We even have that pan, that volume change here. It's a great way to capture ideas on the fly and improv and figure out what works, what doesn't. We can come over to arrangement view and do some further editing. So we could come in, change our automation. We could fix it. Say I made that move a little too late. Come in here. Made it a little too late here. We can use the pencil tool, bring it back up. I'm going to hold Command and delete that automation. If I just hit delete, it would delete the actual clip there. And further my idea and polish it up and get it ready to export. I'm all done. Everything's perfect. I love what I did. And let's pretend it looks something like this. Okay. Move stuff around here. This comes in here. This comes in there. Ends here. We're going to delete this little bit. So I've polished my mix, like it exactly the way it is. I can select time, do a file, export, and then render it out as wave, upload it to SoundCloud, whatever you want to do with it. Send it off to mastering, whatever. Another feature that is really cool is that not only can we bounce the master, so the master track here, everything's summed together, we can actually bounce out individual tracks. So we could bounce, if I did this, it would bounce out, how many are there? 18, 19. It would bounce out all 19 tracks separately as stems. Really cool workflow that way too. So that's just the tip of recording with Ableton Live. I hope I've given you some workflows that will enhance your idea capturing and just makes your life easier, gets those ideas out and gets them out quickly. Thanks so much for joining me. And again, any questions about the video, please leave a comment and someone will come back and answer them. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.